Welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. You would think I would start this over, but I'm not because we are live. But as I was saying, welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. This is the podcast for real estate investors who want to diversify their financing options when it comes to creative real estate. And so today I want to talk to you about a few things that I have been seeing in the marketplace. And I just want to kind of give my own spin and ideas around what I am seeing. So, if you see the title of this podcast, depending on where you're watching it, you may be on YouTube and you're seeing me live, or you may be watching me on Spotify and you may be seeing me live. But on all the other podcasting platforms, you will be listening to my voice. And so, understand that I have titled this Real Estate Down Payments, Interest Rates, and Investor Profiles. And the reason why I titled that is, like I said previously, is based on information that I'm seeing in the online marketplace. And so, giving my 2 cents about it, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to down payments, you know, there's a lot of chatter. Let me first preface it by saying the online space has become a place where you have a lot of information coming at you. And depending on where you are in your journey of real estate or getting financing, what you decide to listen to is really going to depend on who you are as a person or as a real estate entity, or just based on your experience, because all information is not created the same. And a lot of people will not tell you that. And I know that is why on this platform, I always say that this show is for real estate investors who want to diversify with, learning and understanding different forms of financing in the creative space. And so I say this to say that I don't provide information for the newbie investor or the person who wants to be a first time home buyer. And the reason why you want to be careful with that is because a lot of times in the marketplace that we're in now, where a lot of people are just information gatherers and they are providing information online and they don't have no experience with the information. So with AI, and you just have people who are just talking heads who are just talking about information, it leaves the end user, the person on the other side of the computer who's listening, in a state of confusion. And for some people, they're not interested in getting you out of that state of confusion. And that's why the other part of the title of the podcast it says investor profile, because you want to be careful with just giving yourself a title. And that's easy to do. You could go to a real estate seminar, and you can go file the paperwork with the Secretary of State and get your LLC. And you have now put on the hat of, I am a real estate investor. And then what happens is that now you start taking in information that you deem to be useful, because you're hearing, okay, I consider myself a real estate investor. They're talking about things that have to do with real estate investing. Oh, then that information pertains to me. Not really. And that is why it's so important to know where you are in life in general. That brings me to the discussion in hand, the whole conversation a bit between down payment. I wrote a I wrote a little piece on threads, because I can write and I can read. I don't need AI. And I said that if the 20% down payment makes you cringe, being that, and what do I mean by that? You're interested in investing in real estate, but the idea of you putting down 20% makes you cringe, then that means then you are a first time home buyer. And there's nothing wrong with that. Own your place of where you are at, because I want to just sit right in the space of, if I have never invested in real estate, whether it's my primary home or an investment property, I would not be listening to the person who is talking about ways to buy a real estate investment that has to do with high level strategies. Why? Because you are totally missing all the opportunities that are available to you for being a first time home buyer. And I'm not even here to sell you on it, because I don't do FHA, I don't do first time home buyer programs, I don't work with first time home buyers. So I don't have anything to sell you in that space. But what I can tell you is that that is a great place to start. If you're hearing someone say putting 20% down makes you cringe, and understand 20% is the floor, it's not the ceiling, because experienced real estate investors who are actually out there doing deals, purchasing properties, leveraging financing, they understand that 20% is just the start. It is not the ceiling. But for a first time home buyer who has never invested in real estate, it seems like it's a massive thing. And that is why you have to you have to know where you are in your journey, because what happens is that you're going to have people on the internet, these talking heads, who are just spewing a whole bunch of information, and then you don't know what to listen to. How do I know? Because to this day, I still have people who reach out to me, looking for clarity for this in terms of financing, leveraging credit, what have you. And a lot of these people are newbies. And truth be told, and I know most people, especially those who are transactional when it comes to business, they wouldn't care. But as far back as 2020, I've had people who reached out to me looking for financing, looking for business credit, have never bought properties. And I have told them business credit is not the way to go. As much as you hear talking heads online telling you about leveraging business credit, that should not be your first place to start when it comes to buying real estate, because there are so many other ways that you can still take advantage of everything that is available to you in real estate in terms of home ownership, building equity, having something that you own and you're not renting, whatever that case may be. And that's why I said, know what lane you are in. If the sound of putting capital into a actual project in terms of what you want to do in real estate makes you cringe, you may be a little bit below your pay grade. You may not be ready, because unbeknownst to what the internet wants to tell you, it takes capital to do things. I was talking to a real estate developer here in my local area, and him and I were talking about the project that he just finished up. It was a mixed use property in a major city here in New Jersey in Newark. It's a storefront on the bottom and there's apartments on top. And he talked about the financial outlay that he had to put down. That's in addition to the financing and the 20% and all this other stuff. This was just money that he had to actually put into the deal. It takes capital. So be very leery of people who want to sell you on this idea of you just need this. Because the reason why I tell people that is because two of the main reasons, once again, another conversation that I had with a person, and they said, "Hey, Lorelia, I know you do this type of financing in construction space in terms of investor loans and construction loans." And they said that I'm, interested in you talking to some investors who would like to get into doing construction loans or what have you, but they don't know how to do it. And I shared with him there are two reasons what keeps individuals out of the real estate game when it comes to construction. And that is lack of experience and capitalization. Capital is the main reason why most people can't go into doing certain investor type projects. Now, let me just sit right here and just kind of just talk about capital, because a lot of times when we hear the word capital, we think that capital has to come from us. It's got to be my money. I have to have the money, which once again keeps many people out, primarily us, because we're thinking we have to come up with the money. And that's why I do this show, because there are so many creative ways of how you can bring capital into a deal. It's not just you, but understand it's going to take capital. So whether it comes from a private lender, and when I'm talking about a private lender, I'm not talking about an entity. I'm talking about someone who wants to make money on their money and they're willing to lend to you. And that person can be an individual, that person can be a group of individuals. It can look like a lot of things. It's not just a one size fits all. A lot of people think it's just that. And so going back to capitalization, when we want to start having conversations and get into the spaces of investor loans or using investing financing, whatever that may look like, even down to the most lowest form, which is business credit, you still have to know from, especially if you're going to use financing, what is the correlation between the debt and the equity that you want to use? Because a lender needs to know that. Once again, was online, uh, um, virtually connected with an investor, and she was sharing her story online of her assisting a client. I'm assuming she's a real estate agent who also wears the hat of an investor. She has some experience, so she has a client which she sold them the home, and I guess some way or the other there was some type of relationship where she was still assisting the investor who was her client. Well, lo and behold, the short version, and once again, this is a virtual exchange and what I see online. Have not talked to this person, don't know all the intricate details. But the person wanted to share their story online. and and she had mentioned how it was such a um it was so relieving to share. It had been sitting heavy on her because she said that online everybody is sharing a highlight reel, and no one is sharing the stories of the not so great. And I said, yeah, more people need to hear that side. Well, and you may be wondering, well, what's the not so great in what it was that she shared? And the not so great was that client bought a home that she sold. Client had to get financing, which is hard money lending. End up going through a nasty exchange between the city or the town that she was working with, that was holding up the permits for the property. Hence, the city pulled the plug the um on the project and considered the house condemned. Once again, one may say, what was the prevention? What could have been done, to um to protect her interests? Or those are all valid questions, much more beyond the scope of what I can answer. But I will give you a real life story that is similar to that here in my state. Working with investors, like I said, who need financing, one of the biggest hurdles is, and this is why capitalization is important, because people have you thinking you just need 20%. I've did videos where I'm showing 20%, but that's an example. And understand 20% is the floor. It's not the ceiling, because you're going to need capital to do deals. City of Newark, city that I work with investors in, their process. Now, once again, in life, there are things that you can control and there's things you can't control. And to give yourself peace of mind, I always share with people, control what you can. The other stuff is beyond your control. In this example, what's beyond your control is that you can be an investor who invests in this particular city in New Jersey, which is Newark. And in that city, if you have never worked in that city before, in terms of having permits pulled or whatever, your real estate project can be held up. So you can go in it thinking, oh, this is it's going to be a quick flip. We've did this before. We do this all the time. I'm just going to think of an area here in New Jersey. For those online, you may not be familiar with these areas, but you're going to invest in, like I said, in the city of Newark, but you previously may have worked in another city where everything is smooth sailing. With your experience, oh, when we do homes that's similar to this, we're out in 6 months, no more than 9 months. So quick flip. They've calculated their money, that they know how much it's going to take or what have you. But then you try to replicate that in a whole nother city. Hence, that's why I said city of Newark in New Jersey, and your stuff is just haywire. Why? Going back to what you can control and what you can't control. You can't control city employees who work there, who are going to hold up your permit process. City of Newark is a very large city. Same way with a lot of other metropolitan areas. You take any state that has a very large city, there's multiple people that are involved in a particular department. Once again, you have no control. So there are investors who had planned to be in real estate projects for 6 to 9 months, and it ended up being 2 years. Why? Because things got held up with city and the permits. But guess what? They still got to pay on that money. That's where capitalization comes in, because the 20% is just the floor. That's just enough to get you in the deal. That still doesn't cover reserves you need to have, because there's a lot of lenders who want you to have reserves because they want to make sure that you're making those payments. And then just so you can have peace of mind, you want to make sure you have those reserves. Hence capitalization. That is why creatively, and if you've ever worked with me and you know my methodology that I talk about, the funding stack, alternative funding stack, there are going to be many forms of capital that you should be tapping into so you don't be over leveraged. Going back to the equity debt correlation, because those are the things you can control. What you can't control is a city that doesn't issue out permits as fast as you want. So now what happens is you can't you can't finish the work. And we're not going to even start with the fines and all this other stuff. How do I know? I've gotten fined from that city before, even what I've did. And this was, we're going back 15 years. So I know this particular city, they are going to find you. So whether you want to pay fines or what have you, but it's part of the process. What does this have to do with everything that I'm sharing with you? It goes into your investor profile. Who are you? Who are you? Are you the beginning person? You're just starting your journey? If so, then you need to be listening to someone who can pour into you with being a first time home buyer. There's some girls and gals here locally. They know all the grants, all the types of ways, down payment assistance for first time home buyers. But that conversation has no place when you get into the investor loan space. It has no place, especially when it comes to, and my second piece, because I'm already at 22 minutes. Let's talk about interest rates. Interest rates in the investor space are now lower than buying a single family. So I tell people all the time, now is the best time to be an investor. But that's only if you can stomach it. That's only if you can, you're prepared for it. Because it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. So I'm very careful of sharing information that is really for individuals or business owners or real estate investors who are experienced, and telling it to a very infant audience. And if you're that person that you listen to things and you don't know if it is pertaining to you, you have to have more discernment when it comes to what you are listening to. Because if not, you'll have people, especially here on the internet, that are just selling information. They're just selling you information, and you don't know how to apply the information. How do I know? Because I have people who reach out to me all the time, still trying to, make sense of a quagmire. And it all boils down to, what is your experience level? Your experience level will determine what information you need to tap into. Going back to what you can control, what you can't control. What you can control is, this is my investor profile. This is who I am. So going back to what I originally said, you've attended the seminars, you go to the workshops, you got your LLC, you've given yourself the hat of, I'm a real estate investor. But you have never did a deal, you don't even own your own home. Now you need to really be clear on the investor profile. Who am I really? And what is it that I want to do? Because what happens is, you will be taking in information that can harm you financially. That's the part most people don't want to talk about. The wrong information can hurt you financially. especially if you do have some things to leverage, like, for maybe you have, some savings, or you're going into your retirement, or whatever the case may be. So that's what I wanted to share with you on this episode. Down payments, I believe, what did I talk about? Down payments, interest rates, and investor profile. Know who you are and whose you are in this landscape, because these are great times. I mean, right now, interest rates for the investor side are lower than the single family home side. So, depending on who you listen to, you have real estate agents who primarily may have only worked with first time home buyers, and they may tell you, oh, things are slow. Prospects or soon to be homeowners are waiting for the interest rates to lower. Hey, like I said, that's not my space, but this is what I do know. Investors, they understand interest rates are lower, but a lot of times they're not even looking at that. They're looking at other things like cash flow, cash on cash return, cash on cash returns, things of that nature. So interest rates play a small part of it. But at the end of the day, you got to know what you want to do, especially in 2025, especially if you're getting your information from the internet. Just be very clear that all information is not created equal. When it comes to real estate, when it comes to funding, when it comes to financing, it's not all equal. Don't let the internet fool you into believing it is, because it isn't. So you be very clear on what it is that you want, the goals that you have for yourself, if you have a family that pertains to your family, and then you move accordingly. But be very careful of individuals who want to give you a one size cookie cutter approach when it comes to real estate investing, leveraging financing, what have you. You want to be very careful. So once again, if you want to learn more about me, if you're new to the podcast, go to www.neverloseadealpodcast. And of course, if you have an investor loan scenario that you want to discuss, that do not work with first-time home buyers or people who are interested in buying their first home. But if you are an investor and you want to look for some creative ways, you want to expand your financing and funding toolbox for you to uh, enlarge your territory when it comes to real estate, let's have a conversation. You will find that information on the www.neverloseadeal podcast. And until the next time, I will see you then.